I still don't know why I said yes to that winter trip. Maybe it was because I had been stuck at home for too long, or maybe because my friend Daniel kept insisting that a little fresh mountain air fixes everything. Whatever the reason was, I should have trusted that strange feeling in my stomach, the one that turns heavy and cold before something bad happens. Because the night we arrived at Frostpine Ridge, I realized winter has a way of hiding things you don't notice until they're standing right in front of you. It was already dark when our car rolled into the small mountain town. Snowflakes were falling the way ash falls after a fire, slow, quiet, almost thoughtful. The roads were empty. Even the streetlights looked tired, glowing weakly through the fog like they were about to give up. I remember looking outside and saying, "Why's everything so dead here?" And Daniel laughed and said, "It's winter, dude. People stay inside." But something felt off. Even in winter, towns don't feel abandoned. Yet Frostpine Ridge looked like someone had emptied it out an hour before we arrived. We were staying in an old cabin Daniel rented online. The pictures looked cozy: fireplace, wooden walls, big windows overlooking the forest. But when we reached it, the place felt colder than the air outside. You know that feeling when a house doesn't feel like it belongs to you. When it feels like someone else was there just before you walked in. That's exactly how it felt. It smelled like old wood, pine, and something else. Something faint, metallic. I tried not to think too much about it. We settled in, made some tea, and started unpacking. Daniel was his usual cheerful self, talking about how we'd go hiking the next morning, maybe find frozen streams or deer tracks. I nodded along, but my mind kept replaying the same thought. Why did this place feel recently occupied? The fireplace had ashes in it, still a little warm. The floor near the back door had melted snow footprints, the kind that come from heavy boots. But none of us had opened the back door yet. I didn't mention it. I didn't want Daniel to think I was being dramatic again. Later that night, after dinner, the wind started scratching against the windows. It sounded like tiny fingers dragging across the glass. Daniel joked, "Winter nails, man," and went off to sleep. I stayed awake a little longer, scrolling my phone, listening to the wind, trying to convince myself the cabin was just old. Around 1 a.m., I finally turned off the lamp. The darkness in that cabin wasn't normal darkness. It felt thick, almost like it was pressing on my eyes. The kind of darkness where your imagination starts working overtime. I don't remember falling asleep, but I do remember waking up. It was the sound that woke me. A slow, heavy thud, somewhere near the back of the cabin. I thought maybe it was the heater. Or maybe snow sliding off the roof. Then it came again. Thud. This time closer. I sat up, heart pounding. It felt like someone was inside the cabin, walking slowly, taking their time, as if memorizing where everything was. I whispered, "Daniel," but he didn't answer. I grabbed my phone to use the flashlight. The moment that beam of light hit the floor, I froze. There were wet footprints on the wooden boards. Not old ones, fresh ones, leading from the back door, all the way toward our bedrooms. I felt ice run through my spine. I wanted to scream for Daniel, but before I could, I heard something even worse. Breathing. Slow, deep breathing. Inside Daniel's room. I held my breath as I stepped toward his door. My fingers were shaking so badly the light kept flickering across the walls. I pushed the door a little open. Daniel was asleep, but he wasn't alone. There was a shadow standing beside his bed, tall, completely still, facing him. For a moment, I genuinely couldn't move. It didn't feel real. My brain kept trying to explain it. Maybe it was the coat hanger, or my imagination, or a trick of the light. But then the shadow inhaled sharply, and turned its head toward me. Not its body, just its head, slowly. I didn't see details, just two dark hollows where eyes should have been. I panicked, stumbled backward, and the door slammed shut in front of me. I don't know how. Maybe I pulled it in shock. Maybe something else pushed it. I don't remember. All I know is I ran to the living room, grabbed my boots, and tried to force my shaking hands into them. The back door suddenly creaked. Something walked out of Daniel's room. I heard its steps, slow, patient, almost calm. Like it wasn't in a hurry. Like it knew there was nowhere for me to go. I didn't think. I just ran outside into the snow without even wearing a jacket. The cold stabbed into me instantly, but terror pushed me forward. I sprinted all the way down the snowy path, slipping, falling, getting back up, until I reached the main road. There were no cars, no movement, just darkness and snow. Then I heard a sound I'll never forget. A scream. Daniel's scream, echoing from the cabin. It lasted only a second before it was cut off, like someone had pressed mute. I wanted to go back. I swear I did, but my legs wouldn't move. They were frozen, not from the cold, but from the thought that if I went back, I wouldn't come out again. I don't remember much after that. I think I kept walking. Or maybe I sat on the road. But eventually a plow truck found me and took me to the nearest station. When the police went to check the cabin, Daniel was gone. No footprints in the snow except mine. No signs of a break-in. No signs anyone else had ever been there. But the police report mentioned one thing, something I still think about. On the inside of the back door, someone had scratched a message into the wood with something sharp. You weren't supposed to see. And I still don't know if that message was meant for Daniel. Or for me, but sometimes, late at night, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't woken up when I did. Or if I hadn't looked inside his room. And the question that keeps me awake the most is this. If the thing in that cabin wasn't human, then what was it waiting for? I didn't talk about the cabin for months. Not to the police, not to my family, not even to myself. Every time I tried to think about it, my mind shut down like it was trying to protect me from something I wasn't ready to face. But trauma has its own way of circling back. It waits, quietly, until the smallest thing breaks you open again. For me, it happened in the middle of December, almost a year later. Another winter, another frozen night. I was working a late shift at a small gas station just outside town. The kind of place where nothing exciting ever happens, unless you consider a guy wanting to microwave a tuna sandwich at 2 a.m., exciting. Anyway, that night was painfully slow. Snow was falling thick outside, and the wind was howling like something alive. I remember thinking, great. Another winter storm. I was restocking shelves when the bell above the door rang. But nobody walked in. The door hadn't opened. It rang again, and again, like someone was standing right outside, touching it lightly. I walked to the front counter, peered through the glass, nothing. Just empty snow-covered road and swirling flakes dancing around the streetlights. I told myself it was probably the storm messing with the metal frame. That happened sometimes, but then the lights flickered. Once, twice, then off completely for half a second. When they came back on, something was standing near pump number 3. At first I thought it was a person, someone in a long coat, facing away from the store. But the posture was wrong. Too stiff, like whoever it was had frozen mid-motion. I squinted, trying to make out details, but the snow was coming down too hard. It felt like looking through static. Then the figure tilted its head, slowly, mechanically, toward the glass. Not the body, just the head. My stomach dropped so hard I nearly doubled over. That movement, that unnatural, stiff, twisting motion, I'd seen it before. In Daniel's room. No, I whispered, backing up. No, no, no. The figure didn't move. It just watched, or stared, or sensed. I don't know, but I could feel it focusing on me, even through the snow, even from that distance. I forced myself to look away long enough to grab my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped it twice. I tried calling my coworker, but he didn't pick up. I tried calling the owner. No answer. I didn't want to call the police again. Not after what happened last time. When I finally looked up from the phone, it was gone. The pumps were empty. The snow around them untouched. I don't know how long I stood frozen in place. It could have been 30 seconds or 10 minutes. But then the bell above the door chimed again, softly this time. I spun around. The door was opening just a crack. The wind wasn't that strong. Something had pushed it. Hello. My voice cracked. We're closed soon. Can I help you? No answer. Just a slow creaking as the door opened another inch, letting in a wave of icy air that smelled like wet metal, the same smell that clung to the cabin walls. Everything in me screamed, do not go near that door. So I didn't. I ran to the office in the back, locked the door, and sat with my back pressed against a filing cabinet. My breathing was loud in that tiny room, too loud. I tried covering my mouth to muffle it. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The store was silent. I thought maybe I imagined everything. Winter nights can mess with your mind, right? Especially after trauma. I tried comforting myself with those thoughts, but a part of me knew, trauma doesn't ring bells. Trauma doesn't tilt its head at you from 30 feet away. Trauma doesn't open doors. At around 3 a.m., my coworker finally showed up. He banged on the office door, yelling, "Bro, why are all the lights off? And why was the front door open? It's freezing in here." I stepped out slowly, heart still hammering. The pumps were normal. The store was normal. Everything was normal. But then my coworker asked something that made my blood turn to ice. He pointed at the floor near the entrance and said, "Did you track in snow earlier? These footprints look weird." I walked closer. My breath caught. The prints weren't from shoes or boots. They were long, narrow, and almost claw-like, like fingers instead of toes. And they led inside, not out. I need to take my break," I stammered, and stepped outside to breathe. I stood there staring out into the empty white road. The same road where the plow truck found me last winter. That's when a thought hit me, one I had been avoiding for almost a year. What if that thing hadn't been tied to the cabin? What if it wasn't protecting that place? What if it was following me? And if it was, why did it wait a whole year to show itself again? The worst part, from that night on, I started seeing it more. Small glimpses, reflections, dark shapes in the snow. Never close enough to prove anything, but always close enough to remind me I wasn't done with whatever happened in that cabin. Not even close, because with every passing night, it was getting bolder, and I could feel something coming. Something much, much worse. I didn't want to believe it was following me. I kept telling myself it was stress, lack of sleep, winter paranoia. But deep down, some part of me already knew the truth. You don't see the same impossible figure twice, once in the mountains, once at a gas station, without a reason. Things like that don't just happen. But the real breaking point came 2 weeks later. It was late, around 11:40 p.m., and I was walking home from work. The cold was brutal that night, the kind that stings your face and creeps into your bones no matter how many layers you wear. The streets were empty, dead silent except for the crunch of my boots in the snow. It felt like the world was holding its breath. About halfway home, I passed by an old playground, just a slide, some swings, and a metal climbing frame. In the daytime it looked normal. But at night, covered in frost, it looked like a place where something bad had already happened. I don't know why I slowed down. I just had this strange feeling, like I was being watched. You know that sensation, when the air behind you gets heavier, when your shoulders tense on their own. I stopped walking and turned around. Nothing. Just long stretches of white street under dying streetlights. But when I turned back toward the playground, one of the swings was moving. Not a gentle sway from the wind. It was swinging like someone had just jumped off it. High, hard, back and forth, chains squealing sharply every time it hit its peak. I froze. The air was completely still. Even the trees weren't moving. But that swing, it looked alive. And then, the second swing started moving too. Slow at first, then matching the rhythm of the first one. Perfectly synchronized. "Nope," I said out loud, my voice shaking. No, I'm not doing this tonight." But before I could take a step, the swings jerked to a stop. Both of them, at the exact same time. Like someone had grabbed the chains and held them still. I didn't see hands. I didn't see anything. But I felt something. Something right there in the dark. Something standing between those swings, staring at me. I forced myself to walk away, fast. My breath was fogging in front of me like smoke. I kept repeating, "Almost home. Almost home. Don't look back. Don't look back." Half a block later, I failed. I looked. It was standing in the playground. Tall, silent, facing me. Its body was rigid, almost stick-like, but its head was tilted so far to the side it looked broken. And even from that distance, I could tell it was the same thing from the cabin. The same thing from the gas station. The same impossible shadow that had ruined every winter since. I bolted. My legs felt numb, but adrenaline carried me all the way to my building. I fumbled with my keys like an idiot, dropped them twice, then finally forced the door open and slammed it shut behind me. I ran up the stairs, heart pounding like it was trying to break out of my chest. Inside my apartment, I locked every door, every window, even pushed furniture against the entrance. I sat in the living room with all the lights on, trying to breathe, trying to calm down. But then, the hallway light outside my door flicked on. It only turns on when someone walks past the motion sensor. I stood completely still, listening. Creak. Someone stepped on the loose floorboard right outside my apartment. The one that's been broken for months. Creak. Another step. My eyes filled with tears. Not from sadness, from that pure, helpless fear your body can't fight. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks on my door. Not loud, not angry, just patient. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. After a few seconds, a shadow appeared under the door. A tall one. Long. Too long. The kind that doesn't match a normal person's shape. It stayed there, unmoving, hovering like it was waiting for my reaction. I backed up until I hit the wall. The shadow didn't leave. It didn't shift. It didn't make a sound. It just stayed there. Then a whisper, soft, thin, almost scraping, came through the door. Not a full sentence. Just 2 words. You saw. My blood turned cold. Those were the same words carved into the cabin door. Not exactly, but close enough. You weren't supposed to see. You saw. Before I could do anything, the shadow under the door slowly pulled back. No footsteps. No sound. Just gone. I waited an hour before I even dared to approach the door. When I finally opened it, hands shaking, breath trembling, the hallway was empty. But there was something on the floor. Right on top of the broken floorboard. A footprint. Long, thin, claw-like, pressed deep into the wood as if whatever stood there carried weight no human body could hold. That night, I didn't sleep. The next night, I didn't either. Because I knew something now. Something I didn't want to believe at first, but couldn't deny anymore. That thing wasn't connected to a place. Not to a cabin. Not to a road. Not to a playground. It was connected to me. Because I saw it when I wasn't supposed to. And whatever I interrupted that night in Daniel's room, it wasn't finished. Not even close. And that last thought, the one that keeps me awake every winter, is the worst of all. If it found me once, what's stopping it from finding me again?